This is Mike.
And Christina.
This is Blind Chick Living interviews with care partners.
Patients.
And pretty much all in between. Anybody that helps with medical.
Yep. Anybody that grows up with it.
Yep. And again, these are opinions.
We are not doctors. Please do not take what we say as fact.
Yep. Same with the interviews. It is their journey, and it's their journey alone. If you have questions, follow up with your team.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Okay, this is Mike.
And Christina.
And this is the Blind Chick Living podcast. And we are interviewing
Julie Nast.
And so, yeah, here we go.
Okay, Julie, you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. You tell us whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay.
So pretty much just tell us where you're from and I guess start when all of this started. So
I'm from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, born and raised. I still live here. You want to hear my whole story from the beginning?
well, yeah.
Yeah, let's hear
Okay.
it.
Whatever you want to share. So
Okay, so my mom passed away when I was 15. She was killed by a drunk driver. And my way to cope with that grief was to constantly drink all the time at a young age of like 18. It was my senior year of high school, and I would go to school hungover. Sometimes I would bring alcohol and sneak it into my water bottles. It was my way to cope with the grief. And then at the end of my senior year, I was diagnosed with kidney failure. I just felt like I had the flu, like I had a really high fever. Was throwing up. I had the chills, just flu symptoms. And I went to the clinic the next day and they did lab work and said that my kidney function was dropping down pretty low.
and how old were you at this time?
18.
I was 19.
Oh, okay.
So do they attribute it to the drinking?
No.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say because it didn't sound like you've been
That would be pretty
abusing
quick.
it too much right at that time. So
Oh, it was pretty bad actually with the drinking, but
okay.
I actually had a lot of friends and family blame me for the drinking, like your kidneys shut down because of all the drinking you did, and I'm like, it doesn't really affect your kidneys, it more affects your liver. But
Yeah.
after like months of testing, they found out it was called hydronephrosis. So as a child, I would get reoccurring bladder infections, and apparently they refluxed up to my kidneys every time I got an infection.
Oh, no.
I didn't know that. And I had a really bad bladder infection when I went into kidney failure. And I guess I didn't know it until it was too late, I guess. So my kidneys were already scarred as it was from the reoccurring bladder infections as a child. So I guess that last bladder infection just really did it and really made my kidneys not work anymore. So I didn't start dialysis right away. So this was 2004. In October of that year, I found out I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And my high-risk doctor that I had told me to terminate my pregnancy multiple times. Every time I went into my appointment, I would go in for an ultrasound once a month. And every time I went in there, she said, you need to terminate this pregnancy. And I said, it's not up to you. It's not up to me. This is up to God. And I told her, this might be my only chance to have a baby. And I'm not going to get an abortion. And then, let's see, January of 2005, I was 3 months pregnant, and I started dialysis.
What form of dialysis were you doing in center?
Yep, in center. I've always done in center. And then June of that year, June 6, 2005, my son was born at 36 weeks, weighing 3 pounds, 4 ounces.
Wow.
And he was smaller than an 18-inch doll. He fit into doll clothing.
Wow.
Wow. And he was 36 weeks.
Yep.
What about health-wise when he was born?
He was healthy. He just had to be under an oxygen tent for the first 24 hours, and then he was in an incubator for like a week because he was a little jaundiced and he couldn't keep his body temperature regulated, so they needed to keep him in there.
How was dialysis while you were pregnant with him?
It was good, actually. It wasn't that bad at all. Actually, 2 days after I had him, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and it was due to not knowing how much fluid to take off during my pregnancy, whether it was pregnancy weight or fluid weight, and it happened to be fluid all building around my chest. So once I had him, that fluid just stayed on my body and ended up with congestive heart failure. I was going to Fresenius at the time, and my heart was functioning at 25%. And after 2 years, I had a chest catheter. After 2 years, my catheter stopped working, so I had to get a new one. And apparently the surgeon that took the chest catheter out put the new one in the same spot. So it caused a really bad staph infection. And so I went into dialysis the next day, and I said, it doesn't feel right. Like, I can barely move my head. I can't even move my arm. It really hurts. And they looked at it, and they said, oh, it's normal. The manager of the clinic and the doctor looked at it. Oh, that's normal. It looks good. I went into the ER that night with 104 temperature.
Okay.
And they said I had a staph infection, and they admitted me into the hospital right away. And I was in the hospital for a week. I had to have antibiotics, and I told the doctor that had me that I said, I don't want to go back to Fresenius and get me into the other clinic that's in my town. And so they switched me into the other clinic right away. So when I got out of the hospital, instead of going back to Fresenius, I went to DaVita. And I had a phenomenal nephrologist. Within 3 months of transferring to that clinic and transferring doctors, my heart went from 25 to 75% function.
Wow.
My blood pressure was maintained to a normal level. And now my heart is normal function. And I think after about a year, maybe 2 years, my cardiologist said, oh, we don't need to see you anymore. Your heart is doing really good.
Huh.
So I haven't seen a cardiologist since probably 2007.
That's awesome.
Okay, and during this time, did you have any kidney function at all?
No.
Okay, so while you were pregnant, was it total kidney failure? Or did it progressively?
So I got pregnant in October, and I slowly went into full-blown kidney failure by the time I was 3 months pregnant.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
And then
and
I
you're
did
doing
dialysis.
and you're doing this as a single mom and all that
Yep.
stuff?
Yeah, I was still with Darian's dad at the time.
Okay.
When we got married in 2007, shortly after the staph infection that I had, actually, And then in 2009, August 1st, I had a kidney transplant from a deceased donor. And that lasted 5 years. After 5 years, it rejected due to me having this part of my story. I don't know, it really irritates me because it could have been prevented. The rejection could have been prevented in my eyes. I had a part-time job and I got a teeny tiny raise, plus I was working more hours, and I was on state insurance, like our Wisconsin Badger Care or whatever, and that insurance was paying for my anti-rejection medications. And I lost that state insurance because I was making like a couple $100 more than it was to qualify for state insurance.
Oh man.
And I did everything I could to get that insurance back. I cut my hours as low as I possibly could. I called a couple of like the drug manufacturers to see if I can just get like the free medication. One of the manufacturers says, no, we don't do that. The other one says, we'll do that if you had a double transplant, meaning like a kidney pancreas type of thing.
Huh.
And I looked into my work insurance, and with me having a part-time job, there was no way I would have been able to afford the premiums and the deductibles. It was outrageous. It was ridiculous. So my kidney rejected about a month later, total rejection, and I had to restart dialysis. So this was 2014.
So did you actually like stop being able to afford your pills, and so you stopped taking them?
Yep. Because
Okay.
I ran out, and I actually got a month's worth for free because I switched pharmacies right at that time. And my pharmacist told me, here, I'll give you a month's dose to keep you going, but that's all I can do because, one of the medications, as you know, is over $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And the other one is pretty close to that. So after the medication ran out, I went into full-blown kidney rejection and I had to start dialysis. This was like September of 2014, and I've been on dialysis since.
What insurance did you have when you started dialysis?
So I had to get work insurance. I had no choice because, I was still trying to apply for disability or whatever.
And that's a process.
Yeah. So they had network health, which meant I had to switch back to Fresenius, the clinic that almost killed me. And I even wrote a letter to network health to try to get me to stay at DaVita, and it didn't work. So I had to go back. And I was there for probably almost a year, and then my work insurance switched over to a different one. I forget what it was called, but I was able to go back to DaVita with the new insurance. And then my disability kicked in shortly after that, and I decided to quit my job. This was like 2016. So I quit my job and I decided just to live off of disability and SSI again,
So did you go back onto state insurance?
Yep, I went back onto Badger Care, and then I also had Medicare as well.
See, and stories like this piss me off so bad.
Yeah, it makes me mad too.
Just if they would have just stepped up and helped or assisted, and now they're paying
needed dialysis.
Yeah, and now they're paying millions because
Yep.
of it. All over a month of pills or a couple months worth of pills.
Right.
And
I was just trying to live the American dream and do what's right and be a part of society and finally get a job that I actually enjoyed. And in the 4 years that I had the job, I was getting promoted like every 6 months to a different level or a different position in the job that I was at. I was doing really well. So, and like, it's almost like they don't want you to, like, I don't know, do what is right and make a living for yourself.
Hmm.
I don't know.
That is true.
It's really frustrating because mine was $1,500 a month, and when I went in rejection, I was actually relieved because I didn't know where my next pills were coming from.
Yeah,
It's a sad place to be.
it is.
Dang.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Damn. Okay, so you're back on dialysis.
Yep, it's been a little over 9 years now. It was 9 years in September.
Okay. And so
What procedures have you had during that process?
During the 9 years? Oh gosh.
Yeah, like, did you get fistulas?
Well, I started with the chest catheter, and then I had that for about 6 months, and then they put in a graft in my upper thigh.
Okay.
Oh, wow,
Why did they
okay.
go to thigh first?
Because in the past, when I first started dialysis, they did the ultrasounds on my arms, and they determined that it wouldn't be a good idea because of how skinny I was. My arms were very small, tiny. And now, okay, so then I had the graft put in, it matured, and then I got to use it. It lasted for about 8 years until they had to tie it off because my circulation in my legs got really bad. I ended up being diagnosed with peripheral artery disease, and so they had to tie it off to save the circulation in my right leg.
So what did they give you at that point?
So then they started me on blood thinners, and every 3 to 4 months I would have to have an angiogram done on my right leg, and they would go in there and put a couple of balloons in there to expand the arteries. That was the last one I had on my right leg was in the fall of 2022, and I just had one done on my left leg in, oh gosh, when was that?
I think it was November because you
Yeah.
had yours done just days before me.
Yeah, November I had one done. And and now the left foot is really bad. I'm going through like some necrosis on my big toe. And I feel like that could have been prevented if they would have did another angiogram sooner on my left leg, but the doctor was like, "No, we don't want to do any more angiograms because it'll do more damage than good." And I went down to Madison, which is like an hour and a half away from my city, to get a second opinion, and they basically told me the same thing. And then I just decided, well, I'm not going to keep going down to Madison to hear the same answer. So then I went back to my other doctor, and they said, well, we can do an angiogram on the left leg, but it'll probably be the only one that we do. I'm like, okay, well, let's do it, because anything is better right now than losing that left leg. So,
Yeah.
So throughout this process, when did you end up getting divorced?
so we didn't actually get legally married because I would have lost my insurance because of being on disability and all that.
I get it.
And I didn't want to do that. So, I mean, let's see, we split in 2009, shortly after my transplant. We split up, and then I got back together with him because I was stupid in 2010. And then after Christmas of that year, I finally just left him for good. And
So
we
have you
haven't.
been single since then, or have you dated?
I have dated. I dated 2 other guys since then, and then I was single for about 8 years, almost 8. It's been about 8 years now since I've been single. And I decided to put myself out there again recently and start dating again. And that did not end well. I found out what he was really like. A narcissist, talking to other women behind my back type of thing. And I didn't even tell him why to begin with while I was breaking up with him. I'm like, no, I can't do this. We were together only like 2 months, so it wasn't like I got really big emotional attachment to him. So, I mean, it is what it is, but
Yeah.
Well, I can vouch for one thing. And what city are you in again?
Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I can tell you that Julie is sexy as hell. And if you are in that town, look her up because she's freaking amazing. Just, you know, I'm allowed to say that because we've met her.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And
So
okay.
I kind of have a question. So, with you, so we met you in DC, and
Yep.
we actually like got to take you back to our hotel room and show you the machine and show you the
Mhm.
setup and everything. And we got the most adorable message from your son, just saying
Oh,
thank
really?
you. And so, tell me about your son. Tell me about him.
So he is 18 now. He'll be 19 in June. He graduated in May with honors, which I was amazed. He was born with glaucoma, congenital glaucoma. I had no idea until he was 6 months old. So the first 6 months of his life, and mind you, I'm going through dialysis and dealing with heart failure at that time. It was um, it was awful. He was screaming bloody murder the first 6 months of his life, almost like something was hurting him. And I took him back to the doctor like 3 times a week almost to figure out what was going on with him. First, they thought it was acid reflux, and then they thought it was, I don't even know. It was such a long time ago, but he's right here right now, actually.
Well, tell him I think he kicks
Talking
ass
about you.
because he sent me a New Year's message too, saying Happy New Year's, and he's just an awesome kid. So
Say hi.
Hi.
Hi, you're pretty amazing, you know.
Thank you. I've heard a lot about you.
Oh, well, I'll take it. Yeah, we'll have to meet sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm hoping to come up to Washington D.C. for another year.
awesome.
Yeah, for my first time.
Excellent.
That would be cool. I mean, and if we can meet, that would be amazing.
Yep, we'll do it.
Yeah.
So when he was 6 months old, I took him to the pediatrician again, and I said, look, there's something wrong. And I've noticed that he was sensitive to any type of light. So if there was any light, even the dimmest lamp in the room would make him scream bloody murder. And we would have to put a cloth over his eyes, and he would literally scream, sleep, and eat. That was his normal. Like, he wouldn't be awake to play like a normal baby would. So finally I took him in to the pediatrician, and she said, oh, his eyes look kind of cloudy. I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, I'm going to refer you to an eye doctor down in Milwaukee, and he's going to have to get an ultrasound done on his eyes. And I'm like, okay. So we got that done. And getting an ultrasound done on your eyes is not fun, especially for a baby, because they actually put the ultrasound probe right on your eye, like in the inside of your eye. And
I've
then,
actually had that done.
yeah, it's not fun.
No, it's not.
And then about a week later, we got the results, and they said, well, your son has glaucoma, and we need to get him in for surgery. And it was, I think, right after Christmas or right before Christmas. I can't remember. I think it was right before Christmas. He had eye surgery done, and within the next day, less than 24 hours, he was a completely different baby. Just awake, alert, happy, smiley, giggly. It was amazing.
Well, I
Go
just want
ahead.
to say, at least you guys had an excuse. My kid was just an asshole and would just scream and do all the stuff you said, but
Yeah.
yours was fixable. Mine was a female and just decided to stay an ass.
Is your son still there?
Darian, come here.
So I think there's a big area that gets missed really often with kids who have sick parents that are sick their entire lives. And it would be nice to kind of get his perspective and maybe him to maybe give some advice to other kiddos that are younger and they're going through it now.
Does he have a minute?
Yeah.
I'm right here.
Okay,
I have a minute. My perspective on things.
Like how you've been dealing with like having a mom that's been.
And what are things that like worked? Like I noticed I would have my daughter get in bed with me and kind of just make up stories for me, and that's how we spent time together, so I didn't have to get up and move. Like, what did you guys do to kind of get through it?
During COVID, sorry about that. During COVID, we called it a boredom jar. It was a jar with popsicle sticks, and written on them was different activities. And each day when I got my schoolwork done, and chores, we would
do an activity.
We would basically randomize, pick out.
We actually did several activities a day because we were so bored we couldn't leave the house.
Yeah.
I love
and
that.
And then like before that, we would take like trips and go on little adventures and stuff like that. Go ahead. They're talking to you, not me.
Yeah. It's definitely different than what other kids go through. But I enjoy every minute of it, even though sometimes me and her fight.
Well, who doesn't fight? That's a kid and a mom,
right? Well, I think like me personally, like with my daughter, I feel like there's a certain bond there because I relied on her for things and she relied on me. It was kind of a give and take more than a normal parenting relationship. And do you guys feel like you have the same?
Yeah, we do. Yep.
Yeah.
And I just want to give a perspective on that too, because I was healthy and I was a single parent. And I can just say how hard it was just for me. And I was working, I was working a ton and everything, but, just healing a single parent that's been sick and then having to deal with all the bullshit that I did, plus all of that, that's just crazy. And you guys are rock stars because of it,
Seriously.
Thanks.
So true.
So now that, we'll go back to Julie, if that's okay. And it was an honor to meet you, talk to you.
Definitely.
And we look forward to meeting you again. So you're awesome. So
I look forward to meeting you guys in person too, especially your dog.
Oh yeah, he'll be there.
Yeah, he usually gets top props out of all of it, and then but yeah.
All right.
So something when we were in DC, you had a best friend that came with you.
Yeah.
And hearing how involved she is absolutely amazing.
It's insane.
Do you want to kind of tell us how you guys became friends and how kind of that?
So this year will actually be 30 years since we've been best friends. She moved here from Las Vegas, and when it was like the middle of the school year, we were in 4th grade, and she was the shyest person I have ever met. She hid her face. You know those old desks that have the lids that you can open up? She would open up her desk and hide her face in there. And during recess, she was on the swings by herself, and I was the first person that came up to her and talked to her. And I said, "Do you want to be friends?" And then we've been friends ever since. We've been through all of it. We were in each other's weddings. She was my maid of honor. We were there for each other when we had our babies. She was there for me when I lost my mom. And not a funny story, but a really kind of intriguing story about that. The day that I found out that my mom died, I was at school. And we shared a locker together because a lot of my classes were pretty close to her locker, and my locker was way off somewhere else. So we shared a locker, and I went to that locker. I was standing there with my counselor, and she said that she had this really bad gut feeling in her stomach, and she felt like she had to leave to go to the bathroom. And the bathroom was right across the hall from our locker, and she was walking down the hall, and I saw her, and I was standing there, and I'm like, Vanessa, come here quick. And that's when I told her that my mom died. And to this day, she feels like that gut feeling was because of that. So like we have a bond like no other. Like it almost feels like we're blood related, but we're not. Like we're sisters at this point. Like her kids are my niece and my nephew, and Darian is her nephew. Like we're sisters. We just have an amazing bond. We've done everything together.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That really is. And when somebody steps up that has no, I don't want to say financial gain or anything. There's no gain other than they're just
be
freaking
there
awesome.
for you.
Is rare. And
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't, because you hear stories all the time about people bailing, people not being there, and it is so awesome when you hear a story like this. It's kind of
Yeah.
like when people ask me, "Why'd you stick around?" I'm like, "Well, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
She's freaking awesome. She's my best friend."
Yeah.
And I wish it wasn't rare when you hear a story like that,
Yeah.
because we met her and she
She's
is
great.
just
Mhm.
freaking amazing.
Yeah.
So going to currently right now, what are you currently going through with? I heard you did the hyperbaric chamber and stuff like that. Do you want to
Yeah.
fill us in on stuff like that?
Yeah, so like I said, my left foot is going through a little bit of necrosis, which is very, very painful. It's on my left big toe. And I went to wound care about a month ago, and they said, well, how about we start you on the hyperbaric treatments? And I said, okay, what is that? Like I heard about it because, of course, I watch Grey's Anatomy. and I knew what it was, and I'm like, okay, so that will help. And she's like, well, we're hoping, but we'll give it a try. And they didn't have an opening until today. So today was my first day, and it is 2 hours long. I'll be doing it for 5 days a week for 4 weeks. And they said if they need to increase it, they can increase it by 2 weeks after that if I need to. So it'll be at least 4 weeks, if not 6 weeks, 5 days a week.
I know that. So I was very lucky. I rode with like a nonprofit that took me to my dialysis center, and there was this gentleman they would pick up after me, and he went in and had his leg amputated from below his knee down. And when they did it, they did not leave enough skin to close it up. And so it was just wide open. And so every time I went to dialysis, he was going to the hyperbaric chamber. And so we basically went 3 days a week, and I saw him all 3. And I slowly watched that wound get better and better and better. And I can remember the day after about 2 months when he didn't have to go anymore. And it was all completely healed. So I truly think this is something that's really going to help you and be good for you.
I hope so. Yeah, like I said, I was diagnosed with peripheral artery disease, and it's from being on dialysis for such a long time. And, my younger years when I was on dialysis, I was stupid, and I didn't follow the diet. And, I live in Wisconsin, and cheese is like everywhere, and it goes with everything. So, and I didn't take any phosphorus pills, or I should say rarely ever took those. And with that phosphorus being so high for such a long time in my younger years, it did some damage to my vessels.
I think when you're a kid and you have these these obstacles put in front of you that are truly life-changing events. It's hard to wrap your head around that. And like, I can tell you, I was stupid too in the beginning, and I didn't follow the diet, and I wanted to smoke cigarettes, and they're like, oh, it's the worst thing you could do, you know? And I was adamant, it's the only thing I can do on my own. And, you know, like we come up with these ideas, and it's just because our brain should not be processing stuff like that at that age.
Yeah.
And it's not our fault, you know, we just didn't know any better.
Right.
So we met in Washington, D.C. at the Dialysis Patient Citizens Summit. And it was one of the coolest things meeting you. And like Christina said, we took you back to our room. We showed you our home dialysis setup and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, we wanted to hook you up to dialysis right then.
Mm-hmm. So what are you currently doing with the home dialysis right now? Is there any update on that?
So what really annoyed me is that as soon as I got back from DC, I told my doctor, I'm like, look, I need to get into this. I need to look into it and, you know, find out if I can do this treatment. And they said that they don't offer it there, which I knew. But they said, well, it's offered in Green Bay, which is like about an hour from me. And then I found out that it was actually offered at Fresenius, the other clinic. Yeah, the other clinic. So I was like, okay, get in contact with them, because I found out that I won't actually be on the floor. I'd be just in the training room doing treatments there. And I'm like, okay. And it's a totally different nurse that does it. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, is the old manager there? And they said, no, she's retired. I'm like, thank God, because if she was still there, I wouldn't go back, to be honest. So I had the doctor look into it for me and get in contact with them. And it's been like 2 months and I'm not hearing anything. And I'm waiting for their phone call and nothing. Finally, they just said, well, here's the number, you call them. I'm like, okay. So then I called them and I talked to the lady, and she sent me a bunch of information in the mail about it. And I told her, because she said it would be like probably 3-4 days a week that I'd have to go in there. And she said every time I'd go, I would have treatment.
Yeah.
And it'd be like 5-6 hours at a time. And I said, well, right now I'm dealing with the hyperbaric stuff right now, and I want to get that out of the way before I put another thing on my schedule, because the hyperbaric chamber takes 2 hours of my day. So I want to get that out of the way. So next month when I'm done with this, I'm going to call her back and set something up. And I'll go in there to talk to her about it and see the machine, and then we'll go from there.
Okay,
Gotcha.
make sure you keep us updated on that, because 5 to 6 hours a day, that sounds excessive.
A lot. So I did 5 days a week, and we did 2 hours each time.
Okay.
And that was kind of perfect, to be honest.
And I mean, it was a lot, but it wasn't. I switched to nights, and it wasn't anything
crazy.
I would say crazy or extreme. So when you find that out, you let us know, and we will.
I will.
We'll see if we can help out with that a little bit here and there.
But, and they asked about the access that I'd be able to use, because I like the fact that Christina can use the catheter. I don't feel comfortable with cannulating myself, so I would have to have someone else do it, and it would honestly probably have to be a nurse, because I don't think Vanessa would be willing to do it. Excuse me. I had a fistula put in my arm in March, and it's just not maturing. I had one revision done in August, and now they want me to get another one done. And I'm like, I need to wait until the hyperbaric treatment stuff is done with before I get another revision done. Like I just need a break from procedures, because I don't know. This year,
you get there where you need to just let your body kind of handle one thing at a time.
Yeah. So once I get this other revision, yeah, because the lady said was like, yeah, you need to get this other revision done so we can use your fistula. And I'm like, well, what if it's not an option? Like, what if it just doesn't mature? Can I use my catheter? She said, if there's no other possible access that we can use, then we can. So
Okay, well that's promising.
Yeah, that is.
Because a few places are absolutely not, which I don't understand because
yeah,
throughout dialysis you're gonna have every access, so they should
right.
teach you every access, and so.
But yeah, anywhere they're willing to negotiate and work with you, that's good. You can work with them.
Yep.
Yeah. And when you guys told me that you can take a shower with the catheter, I was just like in shock. I'm like, what? And I talked to my doctor about it. I'm like, yeah, look, she's able to take showers. She does this, this, and this to be able to do it. And I said, I want to be trained in how to change my dressing and clean the site, because when she gets out of the shower, she changes her bandage right away. And they said, well, it's against our policy. We can't do that. And you're not allowed to take showers. I'm like, well, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors in my house. So I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And honestly, if they don't train me on how to change my dressing, I pretty much know how to do it myself. I could probably find those swab sticks that they use to clean the site on Amazon if I need to be honest.
Well, and I would start with advocating for yourself on that too, because
yeah,
we say, don't tell me I can't, show me how I can, because
right.
You have to live, and
Yeah.
that's what they need to realize, is that you have to live. I mean, it's like if there's a big giant thunderstorm and it gets wet, are you gonna melt? No, you just have to take care of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
life happens.
Right.
And if they don't teach you every single thing that might possibly happen, then they're not preparing you. And I think it took a minute for them to realize that with Christina, that listen, she wants to go swimming, she wants to do this, she wants to do this. You guys can either tell us how to do it, or she, like you said, she's going to end up doing it behind your back. We're going to find a way to make it happen.
And see, like my team in the beginning, they were the same way. Oh, we don't do that. We don't do that. But the thing is you will be able to grow with your team and just communicate effectively with them and let them know why it's so important to you, and just see what you guys can work out together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just make sure you keep us updated on what's going on, and maybe we can
make definitely
some phone calls and call some people and maybe prep them, because I don't think I think, and it's like my mom has always said, the first indication, the first answer is going to be no.
Yep.
And my mom taught me early on, ask the question 3 times, because the first impulse, no, second one, no, and then the third one, they're going to actually think about what's going on, what's happening, and think real life. Because I would ask the nurse, listen, if you had a CBC, would you be here or would you be home?
And I kind of think too, I think that as patients, sometimes we need to realize that we need to do our homework and show them we can handle this. And after you show her, hey, I'm going to do everything you tell me and the steps you tell me and do it the correct way, because this is my dialysis, I think she'll start to understand more as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we kind of try to wrap up the interviews with our site is called Living on Dialysis. And I know you're a huge part of it now, and you're freaking awesome on it. But could you tell me a couple things of how you are just living on dialysis?
Well, I like to spend time with my friends and my son, obviously. We try to do stuff together. Even before the whole foot thing, and my car is actually broke down right now, so we're not able to do a whole lot, but we would go on little sporadic trips and go on adventures. We like to visit different zoos and petting farms that we have around here. Every week, like once a week lately, I've been having a game night with my sister, and we'll just sit around with my cousin and my nieces and play cards. So that's kind of fun.
That's
good. That's great.
That's awesome. And
also,
I look forward to. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a huge advocate on educating others. So a lot of my posts on Facebook have been dialysis related and education about it and stuff. So, you know, the more people know, the better. You know, a lot of people don't really know about what dialysis does. Like recently, I've had quite a few people ask me, "What does dialysis do?" And you know, I explain it to them, and they said, "Well, why does it take so long?" And I said, "Well, because it's not a quick treatment. You know,
and they're getting 24 hours of dialysis, so it's gonna take long."
Right.
And I like kind of telling them too that, you know, preventative care.
Yeah.
You know, if you would have known, or even your parents, if they would have known little things of blood pressure or UTI, of how dangerous those can actually be.
Yep.
You know, we hear stories all the time, unfortunately, of situations like yours. Situations of, well, I had high blood pressure for over a year and a half, or, you know, little things like that. Of, well, why the hell did you have high blood pressure for that long? They said that I'm watching it. You know,
I think though too, that's why this is so important for you to like tell your story, because who knows who's out there right now thinking maybe I'm in the same situation.
Yeah, like for me, it could have been prevented, because when I had those reoccurring bladder infections as a kid, they only treated the bladder infection. They never like did any further testing to see how my kidneys were or anything.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so we're going to kind of wrap this up, and we look so forward to meeting you again. Hopefully we'll be in Washington, D.C. again, and we can meet up and we can party and just have a blast like we did last time. And hopefully this next time we'll actually be able to talk to Congress. But
yeah, hopefully.
So
hopefully next time we maybe can do an update or something in a couple months and find out how that hyperbaric chamber is working for you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. So this is Mike.
And Christina.
And
Julie.
And this has been awesome. And this is Living on Dialysis.
Bye.
Bye.